This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
There's a Maisa with Chaim Shulevitz gave a shir. First, I want to thank Torah Anytime, Kavish Kocha Pratis, and Kol Lochin. I want to thank the Yevishter, Zika Rabin. There's a Maisa of Chaim Shulevitz that he put up a sign at the Mir Yeshiva that he's going to speak. And one person showed up. The Alta Miras, when he was younger, they weren't interested. He was a gain, but he wasn't, for that caliber. Chaim Shulevitz.
I love a story from Yehudalevich. He came in a Mordechai hot day in the Besmedish somewhere, and he knew that was going to be there. He asked Shai if he should go. So the other brother lived near him. He said, "You go anyway." He said, "Nobody's coming out. It's the weather. It's Shabbos afternoon." He went. It was a long walk for him, and he got there. He was soaking. He came. He said, "There's nobody there. Not one soul." He said, "I did something with Shem Shemayim." Got up on the bima, and he said a drasha. The Maisa goes, that I'm more to let's in Yerushalayim, that big let's in Yerushalayim, that he used to make the latzonis out of every El Chazach, and it made a lot of trouble and was bad hashpon a lot of the young kids also. And he was passing by and he hears Shapsi, he had a very thing of drush. He says, "Who came today? I'm the only one outside." He looks through the window and there's nobody there. He says, "Oh, this is Chayr, he has to listen." And Shapsi was giving a drasha, and he listened to the drasha to be able to listen to what's going on over here. And he got this oil, and he made a whole turnaround.
Wow, Mordechai Maisa. Ooh, that's Mordechai. And what says Shem Shemayim? No people. And this document mentioned is the other maybe. Now. So Chaim Shulevitz said, for one person came to his drasha, and that he thanks that person that he was able to catch that somebody came. Now, this adimyan, the dimyan of the world is that people are dimyanis. Such a dimyan. They're afraid of each other, and they're worried what I said, and my impression, I said on this one, I said that one. It kills a person's amuna. The amuna is dead, chas v'shalom. A person focuses all his energy on his impression. There was an Alta Yidin, a Choshev Afrei. She went through a lot, but she was very smart. They asked her, "Was machst du?" She said, "Ich mach an Eindruck." That's all I do all day. Impression, that's what I make. Make impression, that's the whole person. Unfortunately, it's very good. People that want to make impressions, they function better. They do things. I know a friend of mine that once asked him to speak in public, and the night before they were mavaza him terrible. He came, he came with a friend. His friend was half his age, and they were machabed his friend, and they didn't look at him. They gave his friend all the kibbudim, and they didn't even look at him. He felt like 2 cents. The next day they told him to speak. And like very b'di'evadik, like they didn't look like they were really interested in hearing him. And he told me he was a great speaker, this person. Usually he does well. He just couldn't open his mouth. It's not so pashut. To have people backing you is very important. I knew 2 Yidden, I won't say the name of either. One of them was a star best Rebbe in the whole. Everybody was raving of him. And he one day left the Maisa dad he taught. And he went, and everybody was after him all over. Get him. He's a big fish. Gotta chop him. He's the best Rebbe in the world. Bekitzer is a famous tzaddik. He's gabet the Yid. He was a Riz. He went to a new Maisid. And after a few weeks, the Manal calls up the old Manal. How do I get rid of this person? He's not worth a penny. They're stepping all over him. He's not a good Rebbe B'chlal. So the former Manal told me the story. And he said, you know why he did so well? When I was the principal over him, I used to build him up day and night. I kept telling, and this man was a world famous tzaddik, that he was ois gehalten, ois gabet. But when push comes to shove, when people respect you, and people are there, You function. When there's nobody there, you can't. You're human. He couldn't. And this other fellow told me when he spoke, he mamish couldn't open his mouth. He was sounded because there was nobody he saw from. They were mavaza him. Because sometimes being mavaza is very good. My mother, Shalom, told me a story with somebody who was going to daven for the Yom and Yom Naraim. And they called and so the Rav told him that he was about to go up. He put on his kittel. He went to daven. Suddenly the Rav gets up in front of everybody. He says, "Sit down. I don't want you to be the chazan over here. The shots. No, sit down. We don't want you." So and he was mamish ice bench. And a few minutes later, everyone's looking. What's the Rav? The Rav is a nice person. He's mavazah this person, but Rav, no, I don't want you in front of everybody. You're not davening for the helmet. We do not want you. So do azam ma'isa mechua b'rabim. A few minutes later, the Rav calls him back. He says, "Come, I changed my mind. Go daven." So he goes to daven the second time, and he gets ready, and suddenly the Rav says, No, I'm making a mistake. Go back. We don't want you. Zitzach. And the Rav did this to him a few times. And when he was good to brachna shtika, the Rav said, "Okay, now go daven." And now we're going to hear. It's a brachna hats. Now you can daven. There's not like the Kotzker Rebbe said, there's nothing as whole as a broken heart. I tied it, the matzahs have to be round, like to show the lave. Ugais matzahs. Achmana liba boy. The Eibishter wants your heart. He doesn't want you. Achmana liba boy. He wants your heart. That means, there's a medrash that says, Pari said that night, he said, "You're no longer my avodim, now you're the Eibishter's avodim." So what's an afkamina? There's an afkamina in many. The afkamina is the lave, the matzahs are round. I wanted to tie it like a heart because if you're working for Pari or anyone else for that matter, if you do well, it's good. Halavai is a good, but Pari, but at least you did. If you didn't do well, you finished, you're dead. But by the Eibishter Rachmana Liba boy, if you're serving people, by the way, there are many of us that even though they're working for the Eibishter, so to say, but they're really for people. Everything they do, they're thinking my Yom Rabrius, even if they're alone and nobody's looking, and they're learning. This fellow is learning Be'iyun late at night, and nobody's looking at him. But the reason he's learning Iyun, this particular person, Iyun is not good for him. He needs Bekias. It messes him up, whatever reason, or the other way around. He's learning the way everyone learns, and he'll do that even when nobody's looking, because he knows that as a chshivas. So he does what the whole world, my Yom Rabrius, I heard this in a Vardik. It could be nobody's there. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if nobody's there. People do things that they know everyone else holds from it. They'll do it even in private. They're on an island. They know everyone likes it. They do it. It's not good for you. You're supposed to be doing something else. Because they're always worshiping people. Now, Yom Rabrius is the whole everything what people do. And you got to do it successfully. And if you don't do it, so you might be doing the wrong thing in the first place. You're doing something that's not good for you, or you're not successful. You're not successful. You're not worth anything. Somebody's mutzach on learning, and he ends up he's the schwachste person in the whole base medrash, and he tries to learn, and it doesn't go. He's not worth a penny. Nobody's machshav him. A few Bali Musa, you say, "Oh, you tried, yeah. We want to see results. Let me see." This is Avdei Parai. Avdei Parai means you got to see results. It's got to work. That's. So, about that, we have to try to be like that. We have to try to succeed. But Rachmana Liba Boy, the one who's never trying and he doesn't know when he tries and he muchazach. He's not worth, in this world, he's not getting no credit. But in the next world, the Eibush does machshav mad ma'id. If you don't look for trouble, of course, but such a person's, but that's what I wanted to tie the matzahs around, like Ugais matzahs, to tell you, you become that Eved Hashem, Rachmana Liba Boy, you tried, might have committed, they didn't like it, they did like it, you couldn't. Pink paket, Vum Tzaira Agra, it's 100 times, one time B'tzar is better than 100 times without Tzar. Maisa with the Stipler, Maisa with Robert Chaim, two different stories there from Galinsky. What? He said, what? What's that? Stipler, I think he said, he told him, somebody said, I'm not learning good. So he said, Machavrusa is much better. He says, how much did you learn? So I think the Stipler told him, in Yanavelt, Machavrusa is a soldier, Dubas ta general. You're a general. The guy that's not making it and he's still learning, he's a general. He's much bigger. People have issues in Kas and Taiva and Gaiva and they have trouble with Simcha. People have issues. And if they're learning Musa and they're trying and it's not working, they are 1,000 times bigger than by those that don't have the issue. Friend of mine, he had a lot of trouble with his wife. Why did he have trouble with his wife? He used to buy her things, and she didn't like whatever he bought. And she once made a remark, my father was a slick person. He used to go into the ladies' store, Dutton. He was an Elachid, but he went in to buy his wife a Shena Zach. He knew, and my mother loved whatever he bought. He was a Cheverman, he understood. And you don't know if you're coming or going. The guy once bought his wife, in 1 year, 3 watches. And she didn't like any of them. Because she didn't know what she wanted, but she didn't understand these things. It was a battling. So he came over crying to me. He lied so much. I says, how can you compare you to your shver? You're much bigger than your shver. You're from Tzara, you're trying, and you don't get any credit. You don't get any covered for it. He's Mr. Nice Guy that everyone's raving over. And you're not the good husband like your shver. You're 100 times bigger. Then there's a mice with Rabbi Chaim, I believe. Rabbi Chaim said someone came over to him, with learning, and his Chavrus is learning better than him. So Rabbi Chaim said, how much did you learn? He said, a blot. He says, you learned, your Chavrus learned 1 blot. You learned 100 blot. Achmona liba boy, the Eibush that wants your heart. Now, you pick up a prusa, a broken heart. There's nothing like a broken heart. You pick it up to show we hope from this. Me halten von our Leib nishba, but it kelly kim loy sivza. The benches Tzebrochen don't look for trouble, but we intend to be Tzebrochen. I'd rather be like this, and people want to steig more in learning, steig more in other things. They're broken. Well, hopefully that the brokenness comes from ruchnistic reasons, but you have to be careful. Don't look for it. Someone called me recently, and he told me he's not finished sitting and learning many years, and he doesn't think he's ever going to finish Shas, and he has gotten issues, and his kid, I believe, is suffering also. His kid's having all different problems, and he's having problems. And I says, look, being satisfied with what you're doing is more chashuv than Shas. So under the belt, you're happy with the Eibush's world. This comes first. First, this is number 1. That's what I wanted to tell you. Anyway, now I'm going to tell you a maisa. It's hafla fella. What? Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a murder maisa. It's Oja Machaya, Reb Gershon, when he first, right after the war, Reb Shmuel Shnei Zatzal told me that Reb Gershon used to learn some shmuzim from the Altvin Kelm. I don't remember exactly what it was. The difference between somebody who's looking for covered shemaim than his own covered, how much luckier he is. And he learned a lot of shmuzin on that sugya. He was linked in it. And I was wondering, what was that all about? They all had families. You didn't have children, the Nazis, whatever. He didn't have the Sheine Yidene, mit the Sheine Kinderlach, mit the nice. He didn't have none of this stuff. He was in his different world. He was watching everyone else. Everyone's having a good life, and he doesn't have none of that stuff. So he learned a lot of Musa, of certain shmuzin that tell you how much luckier you are that you have just the Eibishter. So you don't have this, you don't have that. Just the Eibishter. How much luckier you are, the person who focuses his energy on just covered Shemayim. If you're going for your own covered, it's good. If you're getting covered, sometimes you have to get it. If I can't, it'll help you. But if you're not getting it, be happy. Besser. Now, I'm going to tell you a murder about. There is a story. And a Gemara in Tainus, I believe. Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon was sitting on a donkey, and he was going by the water, and he was riding on the donkey near the water, the river, the stream, whatever, and he had just learned a lot of Torah, and he was full of simcha. And he had learned by a Rebbe. And suddenly he sees a man who looked not so good. Some Mefarshim say he acted inappropriately. His behavior was ugly, not his face. But the simple pshat is, he tells the man, you ugly person. Is everyone in your town as ugly as you are? So this man told Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon, go to the person who made me ugly. Go to him and tell him. So Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon heard that. He fell off the donkey and he fell down in front of this person, and he was mishtachav, and he begged him for forgiveness. So I wanted to tie in the pshat, and I spoke to an Adam Gadol who said, my pshat is emes amida shel Torah. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon had every quality and ruchni as you could have. He had, Torah. What's better than learning is everything. Gelernt und ungepackt mit Mali Kreisei b'shas Paiskim. He was full of Torah. And a Rebbe, on a Rebbe gate, you need a Rebbe, you had a Rebbe, you had Torah, you had Simcha. Simcha is such a Maila, Simcha is everything. He had simcha, he had continuity. When the river keeps going, a river that's always moving, that symbolizes a continuity. Masudadik, it's always happening. Not sometimes you're late, sometimes you're on time. He was consistent. Masuda. Then once there's Reb Leib Chasman, and Eitzik Klolos and Avodas Hashem. Reb Leib Chasman said, Seder. Seder, it's so important. You're Masudadik, you're going to grow. People are not Masudadik, haphazard. That's it. And you ask your see the Shalom, Simcha is everything. You go to the learn and Torah. Learning is there. Talmud Torah connect kulam. But these are qualities and ruchnias that are very important. And the seichel is moishel on the chamar symbolizes chamrius. That means materialism. So when he's sitting on the chamar, it symbolizes I am on top of my ritzinus. I'm in control. I'm not somebody who runs after whatever he wants to do. I'm in charge of my ritzinus. So he had all these qualities. And he's, now this one person told him one thing that this person had more than him. He said, go to the one who made me. Go to the one who made me. That means you don't chop that I'm ugly because someone made me like that. That you're tiny, you're focusing only on me. You're missing an amuna. You're missing. That is worth everything you ever did. And Rabbi Shimon fell down. He was machniah himself. He was big, heavy too. Also symbolized he is with culture and ruchnias you want. He fell down. You're bigger than me. Because you have this, you have it all. So yeah. Rabbi Baron Palmer said it's Teres Emes. I told him what. What? Oh, right.
That's not.
Abba began still. Yeah. Yes. So what did I tell you? Now, I had a neighbor. Her name was Mrs. Mattis, a shiksa. A very super nice shiksa. A decent, ordentliche person. A shiksa. I wonder who's more Mesudadik, she or me. I think she was. I wonder who was more, whatever. She was always gehalten a shiksa. And Allah, midas, taivas. She had it all. Decent. I remember Erev Pesach, she saw me working extra hard, and she was impressed, and said, Rabbi Mendel, I would like to wish you a happy and holy Passover. She gave me a bracha. She was very impressed. She couldn't get over it. And everyone held she was a better person, best of the mensch. And she probably had a lot of qualities, but I told myself, what should I do with my life? People focus their energies on so many areas in Ruchnius. Work on Seder, so important. Work on Simcha, work on this, work on that. Learning, all these things are important because they bring you to Amuna. I mean, it's not so punishment, but still, I would say better work on Amuna and the Eibishter because you're so much more. What is this woman going to get in Yedevelt? Who's going to give her Eilam Abba? She's not going to get anything. The Rambam says that Chsidim U'Sa'olim are going to get a special place in Gan Eden only if what they did was because the Eibishter, the Torah says it. If they do it, they keep all the Sheva Mitzvahs, not because it says in the Torah, it's not worth nothing. They're lost, they blew it, no Eilam Abba, nothing for them. So, better you have an inferior, a guy who doesn't keep them so well, but he does it because it says in the Torah, and a guy who doesn't say about the Torah, he does it because Yoshka said, whatever said. So the main thing is everything you're doing in your life, where are you focusing? Where are you going? Who are you trying to impress? That's how important it is to aim only at the Eibishter. That's everything you do as a Dimmer Shivas. That's why in the Vadik they put such a kaiches and not being impressed with what people think. Don't be into that. It's going to kill you. What does he think? Am I a good guy, a bad guy, a nice guy? I'm a good speaker. Am I good? I'm not good. Now I want to say another zach. So they put lots of worth, all the efforts to purify yourself, to aim only for Shamayim. There was a Yid, Mr. Gelbach, his name was Tzal. My Menayel Zayn Gesund Shtag, his father. He was a tired Yid, the Belzer Chassid. He once came. It was the summertime, and his neighbor sat Shiva, and his neighbor sat Shiva, so he came. He was all the way in the mountains, which takes 4-hour trip, and he came a special trip to be Menachem Avel, his next door neighbor. So when he was there, somebody told him, "Why did you tell your neighbor that you came all the way, you traveled 4 hours to be Menachem Avel?" He doesn't know. He thinks you just rolled in. He doesn't know you're away for the summer. So he says, Mr. Gelbach says, my neighbor doesn't know, but the Eibishter knows. Is that a great story? The Eibishter knows, so he doesn't know. But the Eibishter, it's so important. I use this a lot of times. Sometimes I went in to be Mahana, somebody came to a simcha, he didn't see me. I was took a trip all the way to Queens. Somebody made a simcha. When I came there, he didn't look at me. Queens, it was crazy those days. Trip to Queens, Chasana there. And the guy didn't notice me. And I was much nefesh to show myself to the guy. He didn't see me. He was busy with this and with that. And I came special. It wasn't easy for me to come. I wasn't such a close friend of his. But I wanted to be mechazik, whatever. And I came. So what? Mr. Gelbach says, what? There's a gold mine. He doesn't know, but the Eibishter saw. You aim for the Rebbeinu Shalom. Maybe that's Anivalei Malach, Anivalei Sarach, Ani. There's such a focus. Stick with the Eibishter alone. Oh, Anivalei Acher. all these kaiches, think always only the Eibishter, only the Eibishter. You have no friends. It's a myth. All your friends that you're so worried about, they think of you. It's such a myth. It's such a lie. There won't be anywhere when you need them. They're nowhere. Because they can't do anything for you. The Eibishter can focus on the Eibishter, the Eibishter, the Eibishter. That's the yik in a person's life. Only, they say, Rabbi Miller could have had a higher position, but l'shem shamayim, he didn't do it, not to step on someone else's toe. You know, to serve the Eibishters. Maybe in this world he's not going to be Mr. Popularity. He didn't care. Because he was a chayvus avavus person. A chayvus avavus is heavily involved in that nekuda. Now, I want to mention that people are very often they could be very upset with each other. I know a true story. The one that happened to all the players, it came to me. I wasn't involved over here. A friend of mine was having tremendous aggravation from somebody I know. And they learned together in a small yeshiva. And he used to tell me every day, this guy is crazy. He is hurting him. He's bothering him. He's making him crazy. He doesn't act appropriate. And he does crazy. I don't remember the details. Anyway, he had a lot of, and he gave him back. He was right at him. What are you doing? And they used to scream at each other. This went on for a full year. At the end of the year, he found out, this man, that he was rated for a whole year, that he didn't like the way he was acting. This man was going through a crisis. He was never going through, he was on medication for depression, for a personal crisis in his domestic, whatever's going on there in his personal life. He was going through Gehenna. And here, he was right of such a person. And he felt so bad. Felt so bad. Look, he told me this at the end of the year. He says, look what I did. A whole year. I was right of somebody. I only knew what was really going on. So many people in our lives that we're right of, that we're upset with. It could be our own spouse. You don't know her. You know what's really going on, where she's coming from. People who know each other. Chatzkasana used to talk about being down l'kavschus. He would say, you don't know anything about the other person. You don't know nothing. Don't be done. Nobody. Everybody's chus. Everybody's good. The Chavrid are very good at this. The Balzar Rebbe was Gavaldi. It's so kedai to see only good in everybody. See only good. Don't look down at another person. Never, never. You don't know. You don't know the details of what's going on, what he's going through. I was once in a car, and there was a white van who was holding up the traffic like Meshuggah. We're sitting there trying to move, and this white van, by him it's Shabbos Nuchen Chulins. He's got all the time in the world. The guy's sitting there, slow, and behind him we're Spilkis. We're going out of our mind. Move! Don't you chop? This is the highway. You can't do that. And they were cursing him in the car, Shreklach. So I gave a remark. What are you cursing this guy for? And this went on for miles and miles and miles. The guy, first of all, the Baal Musa would have said, now we can get a lesson in Savlanas. It's good like this. Learn how to be patient. So you get there a few minutes later, what do you care? It's all min hashamayim, it's all a teva. Learn Savlanas. Adarabah. Hashem's doing you a favor. All right, it's a different shmooze. But I had a different thing. You're yelling at the guy. We found out, we took a closer look at what was happening. He was going slow, not because he was slow. The guy in front of him was going slow. And the guy in front of him also wasn't guilty. He was the guy in front of him. And the guy, the 5 cars in front of him, there was a big truck who couldn't move to save his life. He's one of these feta trucks, oversized guy who's going like, that's what you got to do. That's the master. So we're yelling at him. We don't chop where he's coming from. So many people that we bafal, and we have tinus on. He's no good, and he's this, and he's that. Look, you know where he's coming from. You know what the parents he had. You know what happened to him in school? I had such a ma'aseh. Twice. In the same tkufa, I had people coming over to me with terrible problems with a certain person. There's room. It's a packed house. We'll try to get you a chair. Anyway, Rabbi said it's very packed today, Chalamayid. And whoever comes today, Zaydal Sarkulam. The Altaman Slabotkin once wrote a letter. He told somebody he was there, Ben Asmanim, she was empty. And he was there alone. He says, you're Naidal Sarkulam. You got everybody else's chai. Where am I up to? So, twice, there was a person. What? Oh, it's clear, huh? Great. Yeah. By now, it's millions.
When I walked in, you were staring. I was listening on this.
Very good. Thanks for coming. It's a pleasure. Every person today is worth it. Yeah. So what? They had 2 times this happened. That they chepped somebody, a man, a woman, 2 different stories that nobody liked. They were upset with him. He was acting inappropriately. It was terrible. He, she, and they hated the person. And I got involved. They asked me to do something. And I said, tell me, how is this person? Welcome to the crowd. Sorry, there's not so many space around, but boy, am I fooling those guys. Do you guys believe me? Anyway, I wonder if they believe my... Anyway, so I asked, tell me. I remember I asked, tell me, this person you all hate so much. What happened in his younger years? Did he do well in school? No, he was struggling. Rabbi said, I felt like crying. I had such a ma'aseh years ago. Oy, when this person went through Sheva Maduri Gehenna. Somebody I know, that they made him, what do they call it, valedictorian? They made him, because the principal, this person used to get 20s on his tests. He used to stay up to the wee hours of the morning, studying 24/7 for his tests, and he used to end up with a 20. He didn't have the kaiches, and he tried so hard. The principal was a good person, and he made this person, you're the best in the whole school. Because look at the effort he put in. And this person, throughout his life, he went through a lot of tzaras. Because didn't have the kaiches, but he never tried. And I stuck up for this person very much. I knew the background. I was totally behind this person. Right? By me, you're a tzaddik. He didn't have seichel how to raise his kids and how to do this and how to do that. All kinds of issues. In my books, he was meridik. Because look how he never tries. What do you want from the poor guy? I hold from him more than anybody. So this person that they bafaled, I found out 2 things. He had the marks were terrible because he didn't have kitchen. What do you want from the poor guy? The Abishter didn't give him. You're the big knacker. You're so smart. Every bit of kitchen you have belongs to the Abishter. You could be just like him. How could a person look down at another person? You could be just like him. You have to understand another person. Hashem, you have to feel for him. So he's not as brilliant as you are. He's not as quick and as sharp. So who knows who's bigger in the next world? Oh, I can guarantee you the other guy's bigger. Because he has less gaiva. He's in much better shape. Anyway, so then I found out another thing about this person. I found out that the social life was nil. He had no friends. Breaks your heart. The person would have friends. But he wasn't popular. He didn't do well in school. And now they all hated him. I entered the scene. I stuck up for this person. The person had a big yeshua. He had a big yeshua. Now I'll tell you. Yeah, the person had a big yeshua, Baruch Hashem. I davened, whatever we changed, the whole matzav changed. The Chofetz Chaim. People did not like the guys are going around collecting money. They didn't like them. Why? Because, why don't you go to work? What's the matter with you? Go to work. You got 2 feet. You got what? Go to work. You going around. You go beitlach. And people used to bafal the beitlers, the guys that went around always asking for money and never going. Those lazy guys that the wives also probably killed them. You know, comes home, his wife kills him. He goes in the street. Oh, you're still collecting? Don't you go to work? Chavetz Chaim stuck up for them. Chavetz Chaim said, you don't understand these people. The Eibishter gave them before they were born. The Eibishter decided you're going to marry an Arman. That's your Gilo. And they poured lead on these people. Shemayim, they poured lead on these people. They can't help it. What's with you? And you don't hold from him, and he's not a good guy. I hold he's this, I hold he's that. Stop holding. None of this holding business. Rabbi Akiva and Novandik, these days, oh, Novandik is on this. Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim, oh boy, were they into that. Not giving enough cover to people you know. You have to treasure them, every one of them. Never look down at any person. Make yourself flat like a matzah. Flat and be an honor. Don't be a big ungeblosen chametz, blown up. Make yourself flat and humble. Everybody is gewaldig. Hold from other people. Of course, I'm very into holding from yourself. In fact, when I said this story about the guy in the truck, you're blaming the white van. You don't know there's another guy. You know what happened with his father and his father with his father. So you're upset with him. But he's got a history that goes back 200 years. He had a maniac for a great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. And Mela, his grandfather wasn't so, and Mela and his father was even worse, maybe, because he had so many dairies of yichus, of what kind of yichus of kas, yichus of midas rois, of not being, and now what do you have for the poor guy? He's born with this. That's his nature. That's his background. Rabbi Yerucham says, Rabbi Yerucham Zatzal says that to undo your past, you have to daven your head off all your life. It's easy. You have built in you certain weaknesses that are Yerusha from hundreds of years. And it's sitting on you. You're the rock bottom over here now. You're the later dirt. You have accumulated all the weaknesses of that you never really worked on enough. The dirt is back. And you got all that stuff. How you going to get rid of that? You got to daven like crazy, he says. I would venture to say, I don't know if the Eibishter expects us to change so fast. We have to accept ourselves to a degree. But with tefillah, especially now, you never know. Especially on Pesach, you can do anything. Pesach, you can get the biggest nisim in the universe. But we have to, just like we have to understand other people, you have to understand yourself. You can't bafal yourself and put yourself down. You can't do that. Just like you got to be done someone else. The Kapschus says the breast of Achsidim, you have to be done yourself, the Kapschus. You must be done yourself. You know where you're coming from. I know a younger man who has difficulties. He has difficulties with minyan, with this. He makes brachas. He's got his, with learning, with davening, with this, with that. He's got difficulties. And he used to cry to me about the pain he has in his life, because he's a serious person. He'd like to do the right thing. And one day I got a hold of him and I said, let me do some research in your background. When he was young, they used to kill him. Whatever happened there? By the way, there are a lot of people out there that don't need all those people like Kvetch, that when they were young, they were a little too mean to him. I'm not so impressed anymore. There are just as many people who had a beautiful background. Everybody loved them. I hear this every day. people, I says, something went wrong when you were younger. No! I hear this nowadays, a different matzah. Years ago, that you could find out where it's coming from. And today, you find people and they still have these weaknesses and midas. That's the matzah. Anyway, so whatever it is, you have to be down yourself l'kapschus. Now I'm going to tell you a mordikavot. It's a Shulchan Aruch. There's a din. It says, before you daven, you have to be menachem yourself. You have to have a good feeling before you start davening to the Eibishter. What do you have to say? Ashrei. Why do you say Ashrei before Shemoneh Esrei? Because it calms you down. It makes you happy. What makes you happy? Zok the Gemara? Rashi. What? It's a Shulchan Aruch. It says, Shomer Hashem eskol yehavov, ve'eskol Yerushalayim yashmin. That's supposed to calm you down? Maybe I'm the Russia. That's supposed to make me more depressed. You hold yourself one of those great guys that you love Hashem, you're in love with the Eibishter, one of those tzaddikim? Yes, it's a din, my friend. You don't know halachas. This is not Musa. I'm talking halacha. The halacha, it's a din. Ashrei should calm you down because Hashem is called Yehavam. It's on Yereyav Yasser also. Yereyav? Yes, you're Yereyav. Those two psukim. That's what it says about the Gemara. It's a Shulchan Aruch. It's a din. You're supposed to look at yourself like you're a great person. You're supposed to hold from yourself and love yourself. And you need a lot of chazara. You spend your whole Musa Seder blowing yourself up. I'm Gevaldi. I don't care how bad I am. But I do so many bad things. You know how many people come to me with that stuff? Oh boy. I was screaming at, I think 2 people today. I screamed my head off at them. Sweet, this person's learning for years and years and years. And somehow he didn't finish Shas yet. And he knocks himself to pieces. I'm never going to finish Shas. And I didn't do this right and that right. What do you tell a person like this? Work on your midos. Working your midos. Your working midos means you must hold from yourself. It's not easy. Very hard. The Fruma Yetzar is the worst. They all spoke like this. Ravolba, Frum Kaikmo, the Satma, where the Fremen feel riches, venig mitzvahs. What are you guys from? Leave below. By the way, I do stick up for Frumies. I like them. They're not perfect. So what? Nowadays you can't on anybody. So he's from. So he makes mistakes. So, there are from people that do nasty things. Plenty of them. Here's an example. Here's a typical example. The guy's sitting and learning. His wife is falling apart, and he's got to learn. There's a famous Gemara. When somebody was learning Torah, and his wife he was supposed to come home after 3 years or 6 years. They had a minute, the Gemara says. They came home, they used to sit and learn for years, and then he came back home. And his wife was waiting, and her husband, where's my husband? And he said, I'm coming, but he loved Torah so much that he stayed another half hour. Whatever happened there, that half hour, she was so tzbrach, and she started crying. She waited for her husband for years. He was learning Torah. And because of her tears, the roof fell in on the Yid, never he was killed. So, you see the way the Gemara is concerned about Ben Amachaveirei. So here, you know how many from people out there, they don't have enough with their wives, they're not good enough. Plenty of ladies that could be better too. I'm sure we can't always knock the men all day long, I'm not going to do that. Ladies hold their own. Yesh v'yesh. There's all kinds out there. There's good ones. They're all good. Or the men are all good. The ladies are all good. But whatever it is, people make mistakes. There are plenty of people out there that are too frum. I know somebody, they ruin their frum guy, kill the family. He's no, what? No, you're not doing it. No, the halacha is, no, the halacha. And he has his halachas and his halachas and his halachas. And he's all stressed out. And he's so medactic for mitzvahs. I heard this from from showing this lady, her husband, one of the kids goes around and is missing in whatever, Kedusha. And the husband is so hailing with Kedusha, and the son is such a, what do you want from the kid? He's not you, leave him alone. No. So because he's from, the son suffers, now he made the son worse, because all he thinks about all day is what's wrong with his son, because he does this and he does that. You know, first of all, the mistake of the universe is you don't focus on negatives. I know a true story. This guy came over to me 2 years ago. He caught his son holding something that he always suspected, what is he doing? His son spent 24/7 with a thing except for Shabbos. He was wondering about Shabbos already. And he was looking at who knows what, Hashem Yerachem. And the son had no control. And he's 20, he used to do weird things. Did you daven? Do you still go to a million? Son's already, he's not a kid anymore. And he actually does things that are mamish like, and the son, sure enough, starts saying things about himself that are a little bit scary. What he thinks of life, what he thinks of his future. You know, his son is Nebuch. And he watches his son day and night. His son all night long. He sleeps all during the day. He never davens. He never does. Do you still put on film? Bubby, are you still one of us? He wears a yarmulke. He goes, he has tzitzis, but something's not right. And this went on for 2 years. The guy came over to me crying. What should I do with him? I says, don't say a word. Nothing. He has plenty of pain. Don't worry about his pain. He has more pain than you do. He doesn't like what he's doing. He's addicted. He's addicted. What's going to be with him? He can't even stop. He has no control. I says, I personally am not impressed with addictions. They don't scare me. Addictions. It's addiction. I laugh at it. I have a lot of my track record with addictions. They all disappear. All my friends with their addiction, suddenly no more addiction. I know a friend of mine, had davened for him, boom, addiction in the garbage. Stuff that they all said it's never going to leave you for the rest of your life until he got in touch with Mendel. So, as soon as he got in touch with Mendel, the addiction flew out the window. I promise you, I have stories. I live at this stuff. It's totally in you. If you make a joke out of addictions, you know what else I make a joke out of court cases. Ooh, do I have stories? Do I have people getting off the hook? I told you about the guy that hit a cop. I told you, this just happened. The guy hit a cop. I didn't know what he did. He says, I got to go to court tomorrow, and I need a bracha. 2 people came the same day. They needed brachas for a court case. And I didn't know what it was. He said, it's going to be fine. So, you know, when Mendel HaTzadik speaks, if I spoke, that's it. It's in Shemayim. Listen, I hold that I'm a great guy. I don't know. You're not. I hold anybody who holds that whatever he says is or he talks himself into it, it's gonna start happening. That's what I hold. Whatever I say, it's gonna be. I talk myself into it. That's all it takes. I do not have Ruach HaKodesh. That's official. If anybody wants to know, I do not have. So now they're gonna tell me, Mendel, that's another prat. Even though we got your number, you're Novanig, you don't want to admit, you're really, okay. Say whatever you want. But I hold, anybody can do this. If you're talking yourself, anyways, I told both of these fellas in the same day, both of them, I always get the same. It's all in a Shemayim, I noticed this. The next day, the guy comes over to me, he calls me up, he's on a high, your bracha worked. He says, by the way, what did you do wrong? He said, I hit a cop. What? I didn't know I was giving you a bracha for that. I just said you're going to be fine. I hit a cop. You assaulted a cop. You know what that is. And the cop they let him go. It's the Mandel's bracha. You realize it's all my bracha. The cop. What? The cop. The cops. I hope there any cops listening. Anyway, they let him go. A scandal. Let him go. He hit a cop. They let him go like nothing. They said he's a little bit strange. The guy didn't mean it. Fine. Then the other guy, told me the next day, he told me he was using a cell phone in the car. Now, if you do that, it's hundreds of dollars with points. It's not a joke. So they let him go with $60 with no points, and they didn't call it the cell. They said obstruction. They gave it a different name, and they potted him. They made a joke out of the whole thing. Mandel's brachas. Mandel is gewaldig. He even asked me. I hold them gewaldig. Anyway, so where am I up to? So a person has to be done himself l'kavschus. Don't knock yourself all day long. Don't do that stuff. You'll come out losing. Don't do that. Hold from yourself and do what you can. And the Novhardok used to say, "Loy alecha hamlacha ligmar." Now listen to what I'm saying. This guy was going to a doctor. He was depressed. He had insomnia. He had all kinds of issues. And he went to the health food store, and they gave him B's and C's. And he took it for 2 weeks. It wasn't worth a penny. He tried again. You got the wrong kind of B's, wrong kind of C's. Nothing worked. Finally, he went to a world-famous doctor in Manhattan. He took a special trip. He went to Manhattan. And the doctor checks him out. He gives him the same B's. And this guy, you go to him, you have yeshuas. So the doctors say, yes, the guy. So the doctor gave him B's and C's in the same business and some other stuff. He says, Doc, this doesn't work. I tried it. He says, yeah, but you didn't take mega dosages. You just took normal. In 2 weeks, the guy was cured for the rest of his life because he had mega dosages. Sometimes you need the right amount. Now, when people, you just need the right amount. Now, you're allowed to have tightness on yourself, maybe. You can do things with it. The shaila is how much dosages are you using? You know, sometimes you're allowed to do certain things, but the shaila is how much. Anyway, let's get back to this guy that we're talking about. His son was mamish off the derech. It wasn't worth a dime. It was shrekla who was going on with his son. And finally, and so he used to come to me, and I says, don't you open your mouth to this boy ever. Never. On the contrary. In your books, he's a great kid. And by the way, when you daven, don't start crying in your davening. You daven, you say, Hashem, thank you for such a lovely boy. He learns day and night. That's what you do. And he did. He listened to me. He did cry a little here and there. But basically, this went on for 2 years of Gehenna. We watched the kid's getting worse. I says, I don't care. You stick to that. He's a great kid. Suddenly, slowly, but now you see anything good that happens to this kid, make a notation. Don't make away with that. Is anything good? Oh, you saw? Oh, one day he took out a chumash. Wow, it's like history. Should take out a chumash. One day he went to daven. One day, and he made. So I says, let's talk about that. You see, he's getting better. Yeah, only once. No, don't say only once. He's getting better. Once you say only once, you're already speaking negative. He's getting better. So that, it's a new situation. Only positive. Today, the kid's a new human being. He never said one word. I know a lot of stories like this. Don't say nothing. A woman had this with her husband. Husband was dysfunctional. And and she was told Mandel's therapy. And suddenly he's a new person. She was told, but why don't you go to daven, do something with your life? What's the matter with you? This is ridiculous. This is disgusting. How do you live like this? You do nothing all day, and I work like a horse, and you do nothing. He says, lady, you say that, you're going to kill him. You're going to make him worse. Don't open your mouth. Don't say nothing. You know what you're going to do when he's not looking? My husband, the tzaddik ador. My husband, he's ga'abet yid. My husband is such a nice person. I got such a great shidduch. This was super serious. Very serious. The medication didn't even work for this guy. And he was drugged up Didn't do nothing. He was messed up through and through. But until they got to Mendel, Mendel says, don't give me medication, drugged up, smoked up, mices. You know, my medication is ayin tova. Say good things about a person, you'll change his life. It's exactly what happened. The guy's a new person. Don't talk to him. Don't encourage him. He's not going to believe you anyway. He doesn't like that stuff. He knows he's not. You and the Eibishter, you turn to have so many stories like this. My latest story, I'll mention a vote about Pesach. I'll mention a vote. Now this is very, very, very negeya. It's Yemei Pesach. Now, what are we going to do with these days? I advise you sit with the Eibishter as much as you can. Right now. Now, there's a pasuk. I took you out of Mitzrayim. That means open your mouth wide, and I'll give you what you want. That's a very bold pasuk. You don't hit it and you're going to get it. Yes, it's going to be answered. These days, by the Pesach, it says Pesach means Pesach, right? That's one. Then Kana ben Shoyel. It's brought down. You're supposed to daven these days. I wondered how come Lachman you start off with Shana Ba Bar Yisrael. What? You're already looking for the future. You're supposed to praise for the past. I wanted to tell you that this is an Eised Ratzin. This is the time that the Heilige Rabbeinu Yena says that whoever Sema Gula L'Tfilah, he's Zeicha to be a Ben Olam Haba. So he says, why? Because he's Sema Gula L'Tfilah, he is saying that he's speaking about the Yidden. It says in Shmos Rabbah, they were Zeicha to get out of Mitzrayim because they had Emuna, and the Emuna in Lamalam and Ateva, and therefore they were Zeicha to that. So when he says Gal Yisrael, he is saying, I want to be like those Jews who had Bטחון. That's why he's a Ben Olam Haba, says Ben Yena, because he had Bטחון. Ben Yena brachas first Perek. That's where you get. So he said, now. So now you're davening Shemoneh with Bטחון. It's a different Shemoneh completely. The Ramchal says that when you daven with Bטחון, it cracks through all the mechitzas. It's a total different tefillah. Now, when in the night of Pesach, where you're supposed to feel like you went out yourself, and you're supposed to relate to those Jews that you're supposed to be like them, like it says Rabbeinu Yena, you're supposed to be like them, that they got out through a Bטחון. So that's a total different tefillah. When you're going to daven now on Pesach, you're going to daven like they did. You're supposed to feel like Gilo Yotza, as if you yourself went out. So you like it. It's a Bטחון that gets tefillah. So it's a different, and the pasuk, if you speak about Mitzvah, the emes is like this. It's a little kashet. Rabbeinu Yena says it, but the emes is every time we daven, why do we? Before we start asking, we start praising Hashem like crazy of all his nisim. So once you praise him for his past nisim, you're expecting Yeshua's now also, because you're so full of Bטחון, you remember the past. But either way, this time of the year, we have 4 cases, and 4 cases means simcha 4 times. So you're an extreme with your simcha. When you talk about Yitzias Mitzrayim, you go wild with simcha. That's what you're supposed to do every time you're talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim. Think of the 4 cases. You're supposed to go wild with simcha. 4 cups, that's a riboy of simcha going on. 1 cup is already fine. A cup of wine. No, but you got 4 of them. That shows a riboy of simcha. Yitzias Mitzrayim. And because you're enhancing your Bטחון, that's why right away you started with Bטחון. We're going to get out of the Golus already, because it's a this time of the year, when you're so drowning with thoughts of Yetzias Mitzrayim, these tefillahs really work. And the tefillahs of Bטחון, it says up in the pasuk, and it's going to work. Daven your head off. Open your mouth wide. It's for anything you want. Be like Chana. What did Chana say? 130-year-old woman. She wants a son as good as Moshe and Aaron together. You can't ask for less than that, but yes, broad. You get it because you're davening with Bטחון. Ramchal says the tefillah of Bטחון is a total different. He calls it kibui. It cracks through all. Nothing stops such a tefillah. Daven mitoich Bטחון. I want to tell you, so I would advise daven all Pesach long. Thank a lot, but daven, you have an Eishrotzen. It's Nisim. Ask for Nisim. The Rabbeinu Yonah says they got Lamalam and Ateva. You daven. This is the time of the year that you really you can be zeicha to anything you want. Mashkir Zatzal told me. Ram Nosson said our Choshever Barons Zayda. I heard that he was zeicha the very Choshever Eineklach. And so he said, "Los the stop the tata, I'll get the tata. Don't leave up the Eibishter. We'll give you everything you want. Keep davening, keep davening, keep davening. Don't be so spoiled. Things don't work out so fast. You get that you're not giving up. That's malchus, not giving up. But a malchus, that's a malchus a good thing. A melch isn't phased. It didn't work, so what? Davening again. But it didn't work 200 times. I'm not impressed. I'm davening again. You keep davening, and then you'll see big Yeshuas. Should be Zaycha B'Karav Mamish to the Gula Shlema. Thank you so much today. B'Miuchad, I would like to thank. I tell you what, 4 sons, right? There's 4, right? We got 4. There's something going. 4 is a ribui. How come the 4 sons? It's a very interesting family life. 3 out of 4 are Russia, Shana Delisha. What's going on here? What kind of family is going? Nobody can answer me on this. I have my own terrorists. I'll tell you the pshat. The Eibishter wants the person to be able to relate to all kinds. You have to be like a Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu took his hand and was what's this thing about Moshe? What's this thing about believing it means we have to be a Moshe? Now, what was wrong with Mitzrayim? By Yakutsu, B'nai Yisrael. They're disgusted. We're like thorns. We don't like you. You're not our type. You see, we have to get out of the Mitzrayim mentality that can't be saved somebody that's not quite your type. We have to be like Moshe Rabbeinu and Onav, Basavlin, who can be saved all kinds. Like it says in Yeshua, it says, he can handle all types. That's a matzi, flat. Your type. So now you have, in Chinuch, you have to have, Asheni Del Ishel means, when you come in, the guy can barely, he can't even ask, it says by Hakel, the mitzvah of Hakel, and Rosh, bring them all in, gather them all in. What are you top? What do you need those babies for? They know what's flying. So the Gemara today, maybe getting schar, but the slightest, maybe it'll go in and out the same year, it's worth it. We bring them along. So sometimes there are certain very chashuv yidden that they'll go to the other end of the world to be makar a suffix that maybe it'll work. And for one person, they'll go all the way and spend a fortune. They don't care. Every yid has to have that in him to be machshiv. Even the slightest suffix, maybe it'll penetrate. So the Sheni Delishal is a chinuch in being able to give over even to someone like where you're not even sure you're getting anywhere. Then you have a chacham and a tam, 2 opposite types. You have to be able to deal with 2 opposite. Then in Russia, it's something you got to be tough. It says Yaakov Avinu, Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak wasn't tough on Esav. That's who went off the door. It says David Amalek wasn't tough on Yo and on Avshalom. They have trouble. They have to have a tough side too. Also, for the person himself, the Abba Banim I want to tell you is a lesson in a person's own shleimus, that he has to be able to give over to all kinds. There's a time to be tough. Shalom Amalek wasn't tough. Look what happened. The Amalek and it's a time to be nice. And this, you have to be able. Different types. So that's what I want to tell you. You have to be like a Moshe Rabbeinu who can deal with everybody. Not like a Parai Vayakutsu. You're not my type, I'm not dealing with you. So that's what I want to tell you. Abba Bottom. Not Vayakutsu. So next time you see somebody that's not your type, don't be a Parai Vayakutsu. You're not, you have to be safe with everybody. You have to try to understand everybody. Okay, thank you so much. Even went overtime. Tonight was the... What? Listing of Verlecha Yamtiv, so Pile Zayin Yeshudduchim, and all Yeshuos in the world. So we should be Zeichet the Midas Bטחון. That's what we're...
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.